How goes the family? Welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully you guys are having a great day. All right, so tonight is basically a rant about certain things when you come into encounters with different people, different levels in life, and sometimes you're just like, hey, you get certain things off your chest. But before I go forward, like I said, for all my investor-friendly friends, from the crypto to Acorns, to Stash, to WEBULL, to Coinbase, the whole nine, all those links are in my description on Facebook and YouTube. Sign up for free, fund your account. Let's start making money moves together. Not giving out investment advice, but I'm just putting that out there. All right, now today's basically rant say I will not apologize for my passion, because look, I'm not going to ever say I'm not a CPA, I'm not a financial professional on any level, but I was like, great example. I was talking to my buddy Adrian today, and I was just talking about how passionate I am about not only finances because I want to look fancy. I think that's high school nonsense. That's people that like to have their trinkets and all and show off. That's basic stuff. I'm passionate about money and economics because I like the fact of not only having an opportunity to learn more every single day, but I love the fact of having the opportunity to put people in position to where they can get themselves out of an economic bind, because that always happens, especially in today's world, because of the inflation that's happening, because of the way that the job market is set up. Somebody has a sickness, something happens to someone's house, car, whatever have you, somebody's job, the hours might get cut back. Things happen, life happens. And people like to have backup plans when it comes to clothes. People love to have backup plans when it comes to electronics. People love to have backup plans, when it comes to food. and guns, but for protection and things of that nature. But people don't want to have finance. They don't want to have backup plans or even think about having backup plans when it comes to not only saving money, but how they can make more money while they're sleeping. The mailbox money, because life happens, events, things happen in our life, and even if you have a great high-paying job with great benefits and whatnot, life can still happen to you. So why not learn about something that can put you in a position to ensure that you have access to capital in various other areas, so that you're not put in a position to where you're in the just over broke category where most working Americans are in, because they don't want to think about money outside of the make it, save it, spend it box, you know. So that's something I will never ever apologize for putting that message out, because last night when I went live, there was a troll that inboxed me on Messenger on Facebook, on my face There's Anything Goes Facebook page, and was like, um, your narrative is doesn't really coexist with the specific YouTube algorithms and all this other stuff. And because they were pitching, I'm not mad at the person, but they were pitching. I call them a troll because even when I declined the offer to pay them X amount of dollars for them to try to get me more subscribers, they're the person's like, well, you're never going to get more subscribers, because you're not talking about enough negative topics and whatnot. You're not talking about enough of the bubblegum. I like to call it bubblegum nonsense that happens in the entertainment world, or even in today's world, where there's a thing called the manosphere or the winosphere, and all this nonsense that is very popular, because it's basically a bunch of people arguing, yelling at each other like a bunch of little kids and whatnot on a regular basis. And it's very popular. That's what the algorithms on YouTube and Facebook like, to see people acting ignorant and stupid, because that means they're not having a conversation that has any actual substance or adult meaning or anything of that nature, or any way forward thinking or anything of that nature. So it is very interesting, to say the least, manosphere. I'm actually looking up the definition, because it's actually, what is the manosphere on YouTube? Yeah, so that's why I was like, let me look up a bunch of videos. But it's just, it's interesting. I mean, I call it a winosphere, because at the end of the day, it's basically a bunch of people whining online about men and women, and it just makes me laugh at the end of the day. It's like, is this really a real thing? But it's obviously, one, it's popular, and two, a lot of people watch it, and because a lot of people love drama. I basically call the manosphere and the winosphere thing online nowadays. It's the same thing crap that we saw growing up, as far as the millennial generation, where you had these talk. Oh, it was the '90s, were saturated, and I mean saturated with definitely saturated with talk shows, from Oprah Winfrey to Phil Donahue to Jerry Springer, Jenny Jones, and there was a lot of people basically whining about when it came to couples and relationships and whatnot, and people bashing each other. And of course, that was great ratings. And it's just the same thing that we see online nowadays in the social media space. It's just a bunch of adults whining and complaining at and arguing over nothing from a substance standpoint that's going to have a way forward mentality or anything of that nature. So me, I always find that very interesting, at the end of the day. But like I said, I'm not going to ever apologize for my passion, which is economics and investing in business, because I see that as the best backup plan slash alternative for working people to have in their life. Point blank and simple. So keeping it at that. All right. Now, keeping in tune with African American history. Well, one thing I want to talk about that I think was one of the greatest. There's two of the greatest generations that ever happened in the African American community from a business standpoint. Now, in the African American community, there's been a lot of great people that have done a lot of great things, from becoming politicians, CEOs of corporations, people, being the top tier of the class, graduating Madam cum laude and all that good stuff, and getting all the degrees and serving the country, the military, and all that great stuff. A lot of great things. But one of the greatest generations that I don't think is talked about enough is the generation of two generations, the generation after chattel slavery in the United States of America when it comes to African Americans, because during that time, between that time, World War II, and up to the 1970s, you had the most biggest amount of um, black owned businesses, black land ownership, and black home ownership. And this is during a time where, Jim Crow was a big thing in the North, South, the West Coast, all over the country. There was just various different degrees and levels of it. But because you had a real sense of community and whatnot that you see with a lot of people who immigrate to the United States of America nowadays, they have their own sense of community and family values slash economic family values, and that they're able to own so much real estate and own so many businesses because they keep it in the family. And ain't nothing wrong with that. To me, it doesn't get more American when people do that. You know what I mean? But anyways, during that generation, because of segregation, black people had no choice but to circle the dollar within their community. And I think that generation had a lot more pride. But even whether they were living in the South, whether they were living on East Coast, Northeast, whether they were living in the Midwest, whether they were living on the West Coast and whatnot, because you had the Great Migration, especially from the South to the North during the 1930s up to the 1970s and whatnot. You had a big influx of African Americans leaving the South, going to the West Coast, going to the Midwest, and going to the Northeast and whatnot. But there was just a great sense of pride in seeing that, that generation who had less resources than we have today, bear in mind. Um, and much more of the opportunities for African Americans, especially men, well, period, men and women were all blue, for the most part, blue collar jobs. So working at your steel mills, working at your factories, doing construction, doing landscaping, janitorial, maid services, service industry jobs. Anything wrong with that? Absolutely not. But the resilience of those generations, because of the dollar circling around the community first before it went anywhere else, I just have to give a lot of love and respect for them on that one. I really, really do. Because like I said, my personal opinion, they don't get enough kudos that they deserve and whatnot. And I just wanted to really go in on that a little bit, but because you have a lot of African Americans, great influx of them moving to the South, specifically to Texas, North Carolina, and Georgia. And is there anything wrong with that? Absolutely not. But I am giving respect to the business minded class and the investment minded class, because they're thinking outside of the box of, I'm just going to have a nice job. I live in a cheaper state. And, that means because I got more money in my pocket, I can spend it on nonsense. No, that's not what you're supposed to do. Just because you live in a cheaper state and you got more money in your pocket, you're supposed to, and I'm not giving out financial advice, but I just know those are doomed. The ones are doomed are the ones that don't save, invest, and create businesses. If you don't fall in those three categories, then you're basically doomed. You can live in a cheap state all you want to. I think you're doomed. And I can just put it like that. All right, because but when it boils down to the history, in 50 years following the end of Reconstruction, African Americans transformed American life all over. And the article states that African Americans began moving north and to the West Coast in great numbers. Actually, back in the 1890s, the number of African Americans moving to the Northeast and the Midwest was double that of the previous decade in 1910, and it doubled again then in 1920 and the 1920s. More than 750,000 African Americans left the South. Greater movement of people than had occurred in the Irish potato famine in the 1840s. All right. And most people know where people, they went to Chicago, they went to St. Louis, they went to Detroit, they went to Cleveland, they went to Cincinnati, they went to New York, Newark, all major cities. Philadelphia already had a big black population, but a lot of people went there. Baltimore, DC, Los Angeles, San Diego, Oakland, San Francisco, that a lot of those specific areas, even parts of, So surprisingly, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington. So a lot of those parts of the country, when not Denver, Colorado, middle America and things of that nature. And a lot made good. A lot really did good. But I will say that um, and now you have basically reverse happening. But that's a lot of people. It's not just African Americans. I mean, a lot of people leaving California, a lot of people leaving New York State. A lot of people leaving Connecticut and New Jersey and whatnot, because it's not sustainable for retirees, and it's not even really sustainable for working people, young working people, to build a life, because we are in a time now where if you're living in a place where you can't save money and invest money in the United States of America, you're literally screwed. It's just what it is. Unless even if you came from money, you still got to be in a position where you can save and invest money. And if you're living in a place where regardless of what you do, you're going to be living paycheck to paycheck, regardless of your race, you got to go. It's just what it is. That's all about how you can get the more bang for your buck at the end of the day. And because that's the American way. That's capitalism. That's how it works. You winners and losers. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to be a loser if you're living in a state/city that's sucking you dry economically every chance it can get for every dollar that you earn. I can't put it any other way. But I definitely want to get to the resiliency of the generations, that generation, because especially when you think of the 1890s. I mean, you talk about generations with no electricity, no running water, and they still were putting their made the sacrifices to get things done. you know and it's sad, it's unfortunate, because there was a program that was done, talked about, on what was it, the Black Authority channel, Jason Black, and he was talking about how, unfortunately, a lot of the baby boomers, and I'm not trying to verse have generation versus generation nonsense, but they talked about a lot, not all, of the baby boomer generation kind of pissed away, I guess is the best way, pissed away the hard work and resiliency of the previous generation of the WW1, the WW2 generation of African Americans from an economic standpoint, because all they cared about was looking fancy. A lot of, not all, but a lot, all they cared about was looking fancy, um, smoking cigarettes, getting drunk, doing drugs, unfortunately, having sex, and having the overpriced car and overpriced house, and not really leaving the next generation anything from an economic standpoint, from the Gen X generation to millennial generation. And that is one thing that we, the millennials, because we're becoming the old heads, we have to start thinking of, whether you're a parent or not. What are you going to leave the younger people in your family, whether they're your kids, your cousins, nieces, nephews? What economically are you going to leave them? Not just great memories that comes with the territory, but what are you going to leave them from economic standpoint, so that they don't have to start from square one? Okay, I can't answer that question. Only you can. You know what I mean? So that is the most important thing I really wanted to just really touch base on, because I really want to give a lot of kudos to those generations that came before me, especially the World War I, World War II generation, World War I generation, the Vietnam generation, because there was an economic resiliency of that generation that was just impeccable. It really was. And there was a community standpoint, there was a sense of community that was impeccable, that I don't even know if the African Americans are ever going to get that back. But I just have to say, at the end of the day, it was a beautiful thing. Even that generation of the migration or urbanization of the United States of America from 1916 to 1964, you know, that was a big, big, big thing. And there was just much more. And then the elegance and the class of those generations, even the churches back then. The churches was more than just preaching the word of God and giving you a good show and whatnot. It really was community. It really, the economic decisions were made at the church back in those days, from what my peers told me. What my elders told, not my peers, my elders told me and whatnot, before obviously they passed away. And that in a sense has kind of been taken away as well. But it is what it is. On that note, family, I'm calling it a night. Do the great three free things: like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. And as I always say, make money moves, or you're gonna live, bro, like a fool. Take care, family.